Well, hi folks, moving on from exposure and the actual basics of using the camera. As I said, for you to be able to have control over these things, you do need a camera that can have manual shutter speed control, lens aperture control and ISO settings. If you can't control those three elements, then you really are unable to do what you want to do when you want to go for any special effects. Now, as an entry-level camera or as a go anywhere camera, I would have recommended this, which I really do like and I've had for a long time. I've used it quite a lot. This is the Nikon B1. Now these were outrageously priced new because it is or was released to be a mini professional Nikon system, and it's built so well, it's fantastic. You don't have a big selection of lenses, but you can get a standard zoom that you can go with it as a go anywhere zoom. This is a 10mm lens, which is wide but not that wide on this because it's only a 1-inch sensor, so this has an effective field of view of 27mm even though it's 10. And then they do a very nice 18.5mm f1.8 lens, which is very good for portraits provided you don't go in too close. But, you know, it's not ideal for headshots, but sort of half, three-quarter shots, it's fine. It's a very good lens, but that's about it. However, there is one element on this camera that lets it down, which is why I can't recommend it or wouldn't recommend it for what I'm about to go into today, and that is this. This camera, for reasons known only to Nikon, was released with something called a proprietary flash shoe. It means it's not a standard flash shoe, and it can only take Nikon's own shoe flash that fits here and one or two accessories designed to fit here. Hence the reason I have an adapter which converts the proprietary hot shoe to a standard cold shoe. By cold shoe I mean there is no charge coming here, so I can't put a normal flash on here, it won't fire, so I would just use this to mount a microphone that would plug in here. So for flash use, which is important because that opens a whole world of creativity, sadly this is not good. But there are many other cameras you could get. Even if you buy one of the early Nikon DSLRs, whether it's a D50, D70, D90, D90 is a fantastic camera, such good value, and also the D90, it has a lens motor built in, which means that you can use all of the early Nikon autofocus D lenses. There's so many available, it gives you fantastic choice. Whereas if you buy the Nikon 3000 or 5000 series, they do not have an internal lens motor drive. Therefore, you have to buy the later G lenses, which not only restricts you, but means you have to pay that much more. D90 is a fantastic camera, 12 megapixels, but don't think of 12 megapixels on a DSLR as you would 12 megapixels on your phone. 12 megapixels on a DSLR is adequate for nearly everything that you would need, and it's not that long that professionals have got rid of their D3s and D700s, which were also 12 megapixels. In fact, where the D700 and D3s are concerned, there's many professionals still using them now quite happily for weddings and that sort of thing, so not a problem at all. And you have all the control and creativity that the DSLR can afford you. So once you've got the basics of shutter, aperture, ISO, focusing and all of that, your next step will probably be to want to introduce flash. Now you may be inclined to just go out and just buy a standard TTL flash. If it's a Nikon flash, it will probably be overpriced and limited on what you can do, because apart from the very latest range that has just been released that I don't know too much about, none of the earlier Nikon flash units support radio transmitter for remote release. They're all done on line of sight infrared, which doesn't give you that much control. It can be unreliable, and yet there are flash guns out there that do work with radio triggers that you can release even if you can't see the flash from anything up to 100 feet away, sometimes more. So if you are going to invest in a flash or two for creative purposes, I've recommended them before, I'd recommend one of these. This is the Yongnuo YM560. This is the 4, you can buy the 3 as well. The only difference between the 3 and the 4 is that the 4 can actually control another flash, whereas the 3 can only be triggered remotely. I would recommend you buy a couple of these along with this guy. This is what makes it all happen. This is the YM560TX transmitter. This goes on your camera, and from this transmitter you can actually control the power on the flash. You can increase it, decrease it, you can adjust the zoom on the head. This zooms from 24 to 105. So if the flash is further away, you can narrow the beam. If you want a creative effect, you can narrow the beam to create a vignette around the edges. That's so much you can do. Takes 4 AA batteries, always use rechargeables. These are Eneloop Pro, which are one of the best batteries you can get, but you know, for amateur home use, if you get yourself a pack of 8 Amazon Basics rechargeable batteries, as long as they're more than 2000 milliamp hours, they'll be fine, and obviously get a suitable charger for them. They will pay for themselves in no time, because 4 of the Amazon Basics rechargeables are not much more, maybe twice or 3 times the price, and buying 4 alkaline batteries, and they recharge faster, the flash goes faster as well. So what can you do when you have 1 or 2 of these and this? Well, basically, you can put this on your camera, and you can put this anywhere, to the side, behind your subject, behind a wall, behind a tree, behind a pew in a church if you're photographing a building, but it will still work within 100 or 150 feet because it's a radio trigger. It gives you other creative options as well. For example, if you want to do, say, a portrait shoot at home, if you have a couple of these, you can, if you've got a white wall, you can bounce one off a wall, creating a massive light source for soft light, and you can bounce another one off another wall as a fill-in light, and you can infinitely adjust them. You can turn one up or down and the other so that you don't get a flat light, so that you get a light appearing to come from this side, but you get a slight fill-in from here or from here. Some of those 1940s, 1950s film noir photos are lit by one light from this direction, and often one light low down behind, set very narrow, just as a rim light for the back of the head. There's so much that you can do, and there's so much that you can experiment with when you have these. You can put filters on the front. You can buy some cheap coloured filters on eBay to make the light from these red, or give different colour effects. And the filters can also be used for corrective purposes. If you, say, want to do something dramatic, if you want to create a dramatic scene, a sort of a Halloween scene of, say, a nurse with a knife, in fact, dressed with a knife in a corridor, and you want the whole corridor to look red, but the nurse to be lit up, or whoever, the model, to be lit up in correct light, you could actually have the camera, the colour balance on the camera set to make everything go red, and you could have a blue filter on the flash with a snoot on it focused directly onto the subject that will correct the red, so your subject will be lit up in the correct colour and everything behind them turns red. It's amazing what you can actually do. Or say, if you want to create a spooky outdoor scene, you can set your camera to turn everything blue, and then you could have a red filter to light up your subject, so that your subject is lit in the correct colour balance, or colour temperature, but everything else has this dark, eerie blue tone to it. So there's so much that you can do, and you don't have to spend a fortune. These are absolutely amazing. They're a bit big for on-camera use unless you really need them for something professional. Many professionals do use these now, really, to be honest, because they are well built, they're reliable, they recharge very, very quickly, they're very powerful, they're infinitely controllable. This controller doesn't weigh much on your camera, so whether you're using it on a DSLR or even a smaller mirrorless camera, it's not overbearing. Whereas if you were to put this on a mirrorless camera, it would be a bit too big. It's okay if you're doing a wedding or something, but for general use, you don't need something this size. As a carry-around flash, I've reviewed this before. This is a Viltrox, whatever it is. You can get these on eBay for 20 or 30 pounds. This is actually really, really good. It has more than enough light for what I would use it for when it's out with friends, that sort of thing, as an emergency flash. Recharges quite quickly, only takes 2 batteries, it's not that heavy, so it's something I can have in my bag whether I need it or not. Whereas if this is quite a weight and quite a size, especially if it's something that you're only going to use occasionally. So I would definitely try, consider getting 2 of these and 1 of these. The ideal would be 3 of these, because then you have got a key light, a fill light, and you could either a hair light or background light. You can control many from this, so depending how far you want to go, how creative you want to be. You could even have half a dozen of these, again controlled by this, enough to light up the interior of a whole building. So there's so much that you can do, and it's all about using your head and being creative. For example, if you want to take the step up from hard flash gun direct light, which hard light is, it's defined by the size of the light source. So a small flash gun, tiny head like this, that's a very hard light, which is why professionals either bounce it from an umbrella or it goes inside a softbox where again the source of the light is larger. Bouncing it off the wall is also another thing that you can do. Or if you want to get really smart, you could go down to a DIY store and buy some 25mm plastic tubing with some corners, and you can make a plastic frame for £10, whatever, and you could cover that frame with white fabric, preferably thin, not too thick, because you want it to disperse the light, not stop it. Something called rip stop nylon is ideal, or failing that, you could even just use plain net curtain fabric, maybe double it up just for extra disbursement. You could staple it or clip it over the frame, and hey presto, if you light 1 or 2 of these behind that, you have then created a massive, very cheap, very light, very easy to use light source that will give absolutely amazing wraparound soft light on your subject. So it's all about thinking outside of the box. If you're into product photography, if you sell on eBay, that sort of thing, you can buy small softbox, cubed soft boxes, £5 to £10, and you could put 1 of these, you could sit them on one of these shoes, and you could put 1 on each side, experiment, release it with the remote trigger, and you will have perfect professional product photography. And once you get your settings right, and you know what they are then repeatable. So from then on, every time you're going to photograph something, you know that your go-to settings are 1/64th power on this one, 1/64th on the other, your lens aperture, whatever it may be, and your ISO, wherever it may be, everything. Once you know what they are, you literally repeat those settings and just replace the product, and you can photograph things professionally very, very, very quickly. So that's another important factor with using flash guns. Then, if you do want to get creative, sometimes you don't actually see a creative shot before your eyes. Sometimes you need to create that shot. Now, in this image, I'd seen something like this somewhere, I don't know where, and I got the idea. And I thought, well, I will try this. Now, the key to this photo was actually finding a tea light lamp that had an aperture in the bottom for the light from the flash gun to fire into the tea lamp from the bottom, so that the source of light to my face would come from the tea lamp. I did see one somewhere, they do exist. Some of them do have a removable bottom so that you can unscrew, if they're hanging, you can twist the bottom, a circle in the bottom or a square, and it comes out and you can take the tea light and change it. But if you remove that, you can adjust it to actually fit a flash gun head into the bottom. Now if you stand the flash gun onto a tripod with the tea lamp on the top, and you use the remote trigger on a camera, and either somebody else fires the camera or you could do it with a self timer, with trial and error adjusting, that is adjusting your exposure and your lens aperture and the power output of the flash gun. What you need is the background to be dark so that the only light source is coming from the tea lamp. And as you see in this image, I had actually set the flash gun up on a tripod. I was holding the tea lamp, resting it on the tripod, and I used the remote release for the camera with the remote trigger on the remote flash controller on the camera, and I literally fired off several shots, a little bit of trial and error with exposure, and then I got one that was close enough. Once I got the image just about how I wanted it, I then imported it into Lightroom. If there was any signs of the tripod below the, or even the flash gun below the tea lamp, then I could remove them in Photoshop and adjust everything, bring down the shadows and the blacks to get the photo exactly as I wanted, and thereby I created this sort of dreamy Alice in Wonderland effect. Well, it would be if it were Alice instead of me, but it was more for demonstration and experimental purposes. There are so many things that you can do with a flash gun, and you don't need to spend a lot of money. Fortunately, now we have this sort of thing available. This, not that long ago, would have been rocket science, even 10 or 15 years ago. It's not that long since radio flash triggers were actually released, and they were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds just for the triggers, and you had to buy one to go onto your camera, one trigger to go on the bottom of every flash gun, as well as the cost of the flash gun. Whereas now, you can buy 2 of these flash guns with a radio receiver built in and a radio transmitter that gives full control. And this not only controls the power of this flash gun, it can control the zoom on the front, so you can even adjust the effect as well as the power. And you can buy 2 of these and one of these for 100, 120 pounds, maybe 130. It's not a lot for what it can do for you, and literally if you buy 2 or 3 of these, and you get yourself a couple of umbrellas with a couple of cheap stands, which are not much money really, online on eBay or Amazon, you have then the tools to be able to take amazing studio shots in your own home or even outdoors, which is something I'll go into in another video. So anyway, there are other alternatives to these, but these, in my opinion, pound for pound, are the best value. They're reliable, they have stood the test of time, and there are many professionals using these now because they've thought to themselves, wait a minute, a Nikon Speedlight of this power is £400. This is less than 50. The Nikon will probably outlive this, but there's no guarantee. It certainly won't outlive it if you drop it or leave it somewhere or it's stolen. So they can do anything that they need to with this, and most professionals don't use their Speedlight on auto or TTL anyway. Anybody who wants to take high quality flash images will always have the flash on manual. Why? Because as you can see from all automatic cameras, as soon as the flash is on, what happens when you photograph people? The flash literally nukes their face and literally takes over the whole image. Whereas if you have manual control, the key with the flash is for it to supplement the light, for it to be subtle, so that when you look at the image, it doesn't jump out at you that the subject has literally been nuked with a powerful flash. It should help really to just contribute, and that's why on manual you can always have the flash just slightly underexposed so it doesn't overdo it. If it's not quite exposed enough, you can always bring it up slightly in Lightroom or your photo editing software. But if there has been too much light there and the highlights have been blown out, there's nothing you can do about it. The image will be ruined and it will just look amateur no matter what you do. So there you go, Yongnuo Wide 560 and the 560 TX. Look for them on eBay or Amazon. Best of mine as a package. I do sell them with either 2 or 3 of these and 1 of these, and get yourself some rechargeable batteries, and then this will open a whole new world of creative multi-flash photography, and I'll go into this more in what you can do in the next video. Okay, back soon. Bye.